Welcome to the Moon Eagles Wrestling Podcast. Today should be fun. This is going to be the essentially the part 3 that I've been talking about. This is where I fantasy book a WWE and TNA show. Periodically I wonder whether or not that intro is too long. I'm going to shorten that up. Anyway, welcome back to the Moon Equals Wrestling Podcast. I, of course, am Juan L. Hearn, more affectionately known as the Moon. And I started this off with it started off with Jordynne Grace showing up in NXT. And then the conversation happened about whether or not there was too many championships and a whole conversation about intergender wrestling. It all boiled down to this partnership with WWE, more specifically NXT and TNA. And that led me to want to come up with this. 9 matches on a card mixing WWE and TNA wrestlers. Before I get into that, on the short video that I posted a couple days ago, where it's just me catching up from when I had last recorded, this will go out today. This is Thursday, the 20th of June. This will go out today. I'm recording it at 2 something, and I will put it out in like an hour or so. Leading up to that video, I wanted that video to be posted when it was, so that I could try to predict what was going to happen with Joe Hendry. They said his name. He appeared. He's on NXT this past Tuesday. He was part of that Battle Royal, and he was eliminated first. There are a lot of issues with fans understanding why. Even Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter had put out some statement about how he just didn't get it. And I'm like, dude, you're Dave Meltzer. Professional wrestling has been your life. Like that's your thing. The moment that he was eliminated, I automatically knew, okay, so Hendry's not the title story. Hendry is another story. Which means that Hendry's going to be a bigger story. It's going to encompass something much bigger. So for that, I'm all on board. And I had Joe Hendry versus Trick Williams in anticipation of that being the match that NXT was going to do. It's not. And I gave them both new opponents on this list. But since this is Thursday, then tonight at 8:00 on, I think it's Access TV, watch Impact, watch TNA Wrestling. I mean, you should be watching TNA Wrestling anyway, but watch tonight because I'm sure something's going to go down as a result of Hendry and Kazarian being a part of that Battle Royal. There's going to be some play back and forth, and it's going to be, I don't want to say must-see TV, but it's important to watch all the parts. So don't just focus on Tuesday night NXT. Thursday's Impact is going to be important too. So make sure you're watching both of those shows to follow this story and this partnership. Yeah, there's really no point in droning on about that. So let's just get into the card. I took a second and I wanted to think of, if I was aiming for 10, but I really only got 9 matches. So if you have yourself a 10th match, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Let me know what your 10th match would have been based on who I didn't include on this. Now, obviously, there's a lot of popular stars on both shows. TNA's got some really, really super popular people, and WWE's clearly got some really popular people. I didn't isolate this to just NXT. I didn't think that was. I didn't like that. I didn't like that. But this is 9 matches, pretty evenly balanced between the men and the women, and fairly balanced between TNA and actually it's completely balanced between TNA and WWE. So I'll just tell you what they are. So instead of having the NXT champion Trick Williams going against Joe Hendry, I instead have Trick Williams going against the TNA X Division champion Mustafa Ali. Why? One, it's a championship. It's a champion versus champion match. Of course, there will be champions on this list, and they will have matches. I would assume that none of these are title matches. Because why? Why? Just they're showcase matches. They're the best of TNA going against the best of WWE in a showcase. Titles don't necessarily need to change hands or be involved in this situation at all. And having a straight thing with champions versus champions, that's played. Let's not do all that. This particular match, I thought that Trick's got some good power and some good. He's got some aerial moves. He can roll, but he's more grounded. I think he's going to be the stronger of the competitors. But given that fact that he's a TNA star now, Ali's going to be doing a lot more with what Ali can do. And I think the character dynamic of what Ali's doing with this like politician thing will work out really good with this whoop that trick thing that Williams has got going on. There's my first match there. Like I said, I want to try and get this episode to be a little bit shorter because it's fun. It's just we're not going over newsy stuff. We're just doing dumb fantasy booking stuff. Also, if you dig my fantasy booking, then let me know. I might do some more. We'll figure it out. Also, anything else that you can think of that will improve this show, let me know. I want to do better. So, my next match is a fatal 4-way because why not? I mean, I'm not booking the first match of a rivalry in a Hell in a Cell, but I think a fatal 4-way match is a really good way of getting this contrast. You'll see why. I have Liv Morgan, WWE's Liv Morgan, WWE's Women's World Heavyweight Champion or Women's World Champion, against Killer Kelly, against Tasha Steelz, against Natalya. One, you gotta have Natalya on this card. You just do. Like her or not. You can think she's the boat or not. Ultimately, she's earned her stripes. And I think that when you're looking at the styles of a Killer Kelly and Natalya, or a Liv Morgan and a Steelz, and then you're putting them in the same match. You're putting the Steelz Morgan in the same match as Killer Kelly and Natalya. I think you're going to have a lot of good opposition of styles that can keep the match really, really, really interesting. Now, if you know anything about me, and I haven't really made this a thing for the show, but when it comes to multi-person matches, I prefer an elimination style. I don't want one person to sneak in and get a win and then the whole thing's over. I would much rather everyone has to get pinned. Otherwise, it's not a real showcase. It's not a real match. You didn't really beat everyone. I want there to be definitive winners in these types of matches. So, Liv Morgan, Killer Kelly, Tasha Steelz, Natalya, Fatal 4-Way, elimination style. Let's just see who the best one. And no, I have not picked out who I want to win these matches. Here's why. I'd be more than happy to have a guest on and debate this card. But it's the match. And I think we kind of get away from that anymore. We were so worried about just who's going to win. It's about the match. It's about the story that these wrestlers can tell in the ring. The winner in a predetermined situation ultimately is irrelevant. But if they can put on a great match, that's what ultimately matters. Right? So we're here for the wrestling. We're here for the story. The result is secondary. No, I did not pick winners. You guys can debate who wins what match if you want to. Leave those in the comments as well. After that, I'm like, okay, who is a popular star in the WWE I want on this card? And I realized, gotta have Kevin Owens. So now who's someone that can match power with Kevin Owens? I thought Jake something. I was trying to think of something punny, and I just didn't find anything that really worked. Jake something versus Kevin Owens. Both of them very, very strong. Kevin is smaller, so there's going to be a size dynamic. And I like a good size dynamic, but I don't want one that looks just it's like the Great Khali versus Rey Mysterio. I don't like the classic David and Goliath, but I do like to have one person having an advantage over the other in one space because now that gives room for the story to be told. Here's an obstacle that this guy has to, overcome. That's where your story comes in. And again, no winners. No winners chosen by me. So this is just the set of the match. Now, this is where the Joe Hendry match is. So I'm like, who would I want to see Joe Hendry in a match with? If I had to pick, if I had all of the NXT, Raw, SmackDown locker rooms, who could I put in a match with Joe Hendry? 252 pounds of pure motivation. I would need a visionary. I'd need a revolutionary. I would need Seth freaking Rollins. Just picture the pageantry. Picture the entrances. Everyone's singing Seth Rollins' song, but everyone's believing in Joe Hendry. That would have to go right before the main event. So I have like a men's match in the main event. I have a women's match that I think will be a top match. I'll get to that in a minute. And Joe Hendry would have to go between those two. And the only reason why the men's match would go above the women's match is because there's backstory, and I'll get into that in just when I get to the end of the card. Seth Rollins versus Joe Hendry is the match I didn't know I wanted until I wrote it down. So much would happen. So much would be newsworthy before the bell rung. And then I would love to see the two square off in the ring. So I think that would be probably my favorite match out of all the matches on this card. That's the one match out of all of these matches. That's the one match I actually want to see. I want to see Seth freaking Rollins against Joe Hendry because that the entrance alone will be worth the price of admission for whatever card that is. Just would be. I believe that it would be. Now, after that, I'm like, I really like Steve Maclin. He's got that rough, tough kind of persona. And I'm like, who would I like to see him go up against? And he's got a very, in my opinion, very heel type persona, and I need someone very babyface. So I need L.A. Knight to counter that. So I want L.A. Knight versus Steve Maclin, one-on-one, straight up. I think that you've got good uh, heel face type of connection, dichotomy between the two of those two. And I feel like they are good enough in the ring with each other, similar enough that the match would start off being very head-to-head contested, very, very like stalemate-ish, and then somewhere in the midst of that match, they both shift their styles up. And I think they're both very, very capable of shifting their style up in a way that we're not used to. And I think that will be the selling point of that match. Not so much as it starts. I feel like it's going to be very, very stalemate. But as it gets going, they're going to start changing some things up. And I think that is where we're going to get, that's where we're going to get the magic. Once they go into that second half of the match, or maybe even to the second, third, or into the last third of the match, I think it'll be a match of halves. And the second half is where we'll really get that match cooking. Now, I have a 6-woman tag match here. And when I tell you, when I label, I'll just tell you. From WWE, it's our brand new women's tag team champions, Isla Dawn, Alba Fyre, the Unholy Union, teaming up with Tiffany Stratton. Hold on, against Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke, teaming up with Decay. So that's Rosemary and Havoc. Okay, listen. There's a few layers here. One, you already have your established WWE versus a TNA level, right? That's default for everybody. Then you have the dark Unholy Union Decay situation. I think Isla Dawn versus Rosemary would be pretty dope. I'd like to see those in the ring. Alba Fyre, I think that she'll have this really uh, rough, tough dichotomy with Havoc specifically. And then you're going to have the Tiffany Stratton and Ash by Elegance dichotomy. They both kind of have that look at me, I'm blonde and fancy. But then on top of that, you're also going to have the how is Ash going to work with Decay and how is Tiffany going to work with the Unholy Union? And that is all of those layers are going to create the story that's going to make that a bomb ass match. It just will. It's just going to be good. By the way, if you're not catching up with all the matches, I'll leave the match card in the description so you can kind of go back through that. Again, if you want to give my card an official 10th match, leave it in the comments. And if you got an idea of who would win this exchange, throw that in the comments as well. Again, the card will be in the description so you can go back to and see who I'm talking about. All right. Faction Warfare, you knew this had to come down. It's going to be a tag team match, though. Okay. It's the system, right? And this is Brian Meyers and Eddie Edwards, the TNA tag team champions as of today, to my knowledge, against formerly GOD, the Tongans, I think that they're going by now, Tonga and Tongaloa. Listen, as many times as I'm going to screw those combinations up, I've never been able to get that right. I just did, but I've never been able to get that right before. So let's hope I keep that up. So the Tongans from the Bloodline versus the System. You have this main event scene faction and this main event scene faction, and I need both of them head to head because I think this version of God is going to have a very interesting dynamic. We're still figuring out what this version of uh, Tama and Tanga is really looking like. We're still trying to figure that out. I feel like it's this Bloodline 2.0 thing is only kind of working. I get what we're doing. We're establishing this group behind Solo, and in hopes that we're going to counter it with this group behind Roman, where Roman gets the Usos back together for the sake of this fight. And I want a secondary drama as Jay is like, "Yo, man, I step back. I'm not trying to do this no more." And eventually, Jay realizes that Roman's had a change of heart, change of view. This is impacting the family. Jay gets back involved. So that's a whole different thing. Maybe it's another fantasy booking. Maybe I'll fantasy book WrestleMania 42 at some point, or where are we at? 41. I'll, I'll maybe. I don't really know. I don't know. Now, two top matches, not counting that Seth Rollins Joe Hendry match. Good God, I want to see that match so bad. For the women, this is where I decided to go title for title. I have the TNA Knockouts champion, Jordynne Grace. I'm a huge fan of. I've mentioned that once or twice. I want her going against the WWE Women's Champion, Bayley. I know there are a lot of people that we could have put and paired Jordynne Grace up with. And I'm sure there's a lot of people we could have paired Bayley with. This is the combination that I like the best. I'm a huge fan of Bayley and I'm a huge fan of Jordynne Grace. That had a small factor in it. But they both have this legacy behind them in their company. Position that Jordynne Grace has in TNA and the position that Bayley has in WWE, the credibility that they both have as champion. They're both on top of their game right now, and that to me makes this match stand up and rank higher, of course, higher than the Roxanne Perez Jordynne Grace match. Now, to be very clear, I've said it before. The Roxanne Perez match against Jordynne Grace at NXT Battleground was Perez's best showing to date. The best I've seen Roxanne Perez. She's always been good, but this was the best that I've seen Roxanne Perez. The character is working, the mean streak is working. She's looking great in the ring. It's fantastic. But what we got right now with Bayley, the energy and momentum behind Bayley, Jordynne Grace, the energy that she's got behind her, the momentum that she's got behind her, the status that Bayley's got in WWE compared to the status that Jordynne Grace has in TNA, the respect that both women have amongst professional wrestling fans, that has the potential of being one of the best women's matches, period. I know. I see the little hyperbolous, but that's how I feel about it. Count it. That's 8. My main event. Not Damian Priest. Clearly Moose, as Moose is the TNA World Champion. And I was debating about whether or not Moose would go against Trick, go against Priest, or go against Cody. When I thought it through, it instantly became obvious. Cody. I refer back to a point in time when Brandy Rhodes was wrestling in Impact Wrestling, what TNA was. And there's a point where she needed backup. And she got backup in the form of her training partner, her buddy, best friend, Moose. There came a point where dark haired Cody Rhodes showed up at Impact. I think he had the GF, the Global Force Championship or something like that. Maybe. I don't remember. It was a weird time in Impact. That was a weird time in Impact. The Global Force era, that was strange. That was strange. You know what I'd like? Side note. You know what I would like? I would love. I don't even know if he was watching it. I would love Luke Owen from Wrestle Talk to talk to me. I don't care if it's for Wrestle Talk or for Moon Eagles Wrestling about that weird era in TNA. I think that would be dope, but it's whatever. I digress. Cody had this story going on where he basically accused Brandy of cheating with Moose. And if she hadn't slept with them yet, she was gonna. And I feel like there's a lot, especially with this super heel version of Moose that we've had lately in the last some odd years. This version of Moose would absolutely show up on SmackDown, the home of Cody Rhodes, while Cody Rhodes is in the ring. Moose would absolutely show up, say, "Hey man, I haven't forgotten how you came at me. I haven't forgotten how that all went down. I'm not the same man anymore. I'd love to see you try that again." Maybe you involve Brandy, maybe you don't. Maybe she's a part of the match, maybe she's not. In the end, there's already an established history. That's why I chose Cody to go against Moose. That established history allows us to refer back. Realize that there's a story that's already been told, already been alluded to, a few vignettes, and we're back to where we are. Cody says, "Hey man, I'm not the same guy I was back then." Moose says, "Hey man, neither am I." And the two are now going to go to head, especially if you add the element of Cody being apologetic about it and Moose not giving a shit. Fantastic story to play off of, in my personal opinion. Again, I don't know who would win that match. I think, given the story, you might go ahead and give the match to Moose. But also, given the situation and his status in the company, you may go ahead and give it to Rhodes. I don't know. That's your job. That's your job to figure out and put in the comments. This card to me is I love it. It's sweet. It's simple. You know what I mean? They're matches that are easy to tell, stories that are easy to tell in the ring. You don't need a lot of backlog or a lot of backstory or a lot of history. The Moose Cody Rhodes thing has history, but again, all you gotta do is play a couple of clips from when they interacted before. It's like 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 segments. You can do that over a night, over a course of a night. Do it on a SmackDown. Have Cody open the show. Do a clip later on. Another clip later on. Do a third clip right before you do a main event spot, angle segment thing between the two. Your match is booked. It's right there. It's simple. I've added no special stipulations onto this match except for having a multi-person match, and the only real multi-person matches is the tag match, the 6-person tag, and the fatal 4-way. Everything else is pretty one-on-one because I think that makes the stories easy to tell. You don't need a whole lot of build, and because you don't necessarily want your wrestlers traveling back and forth and doing the whole thing for the sake of leading into that big event, that big card, I think it works. I think that the matches are simple. I think, honestly, if you didn't pre-announced this card, you didn't announce it ahead of time, and you just had it. I think, for example, you see Kevin Owens and Jake something in the ring standing by each other, you're like, okay, I can see how this would come down. Just looking at their presentation, Unholy Union, Tiffany Stratton, Ash by Elegance, and Decay. Imagine a Decay entrance on a level like WrestleMania. Because it wouldn't be a WrestleMania card, obviously, but it would be on a big level, the same way AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling do Forbidden Door. This would have to be a big show. And I think that the Decay Unholy Union entrances, along with Ash by Elegance and Tiffany Stratton, would just be entertaining by itself. Again, big show feel. Seth Rollins, Joe Hendry. The match, I think, sells itself. What do you think? Honestly, that's all I got. I kept this one pretty short, and honestly, I kind of like it. It's straight, simple, to the point, and that was fun to write. That took a lot longer than you think to write. In fact, like the Trick Williams Ali match, I threw that on there about maybe 10, 15 minutes before I hit record on this video. So yeah, I mean, that's the episode. So I never really tell you guys what to do at the end of this video. So you can hit the like button. That's important. You can hit subscribe. That's appreciated. You can follow me on just about every social. You can find me at DL Hearn Writes. Just about everywhere. Still on X. I'm on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Find me everywhere. Follow me. I like to sometimes tweet during the live shows, like during Raw, during NXT. I was tweeting during NXT. Always fun stuff. Any other questions or queries or anything else you want to know about me and the other stuff that I do, go to DwanLHearn.com. You can find all kinds of other stuff. And with that, this has been Moon Eagles Wrestling. Have a great rest of the week.